It's a big day. It's a tough day with the passage of this ridiculous, terrible, awful bill. And I just want to say a couple things. First, economic policy. We all know it to a certain degree as it impacts us or as we care about those issues, but I am not the best person for that. Noah Smith is somebody I look at a lot, and Jared Bernstein and others who are out here. One of the wonderful things about this, and the reason I wanted to join on just for a couple of minutes, is to say hello and then get into the chat. You'll forgive me. I'm still kind of getting a feel for the back and forth here, which is the best part of it, isn't it? The fact that there is crosstalk in the best way. So, but I would recommend, obviously, your own favorite economics blogger or economic policy blogger. Just put them up here because I will definitely take a look. See, this is why I need my old man glasses there. There we go. From Idaho. Yeah, it is a terrible and disgraceful bill. But I want to get into more of, what is essentially the political and even more deeply the moral issue here with this. The cruelty is the point, always, with this administration. It is an effort to do two things. Really, to steal from the poor and give to the rich. And that has been an unhidden aspect of this administration's policy for a long time. And in the first administration as well. These tax bills have been giveaways to the wealthy. They can't avoid the math. It doesn't lie. The numbers tell the truth. And the truth is that these tax bills, this one, just like the last big Trump tax bill, will reward Trump's rich friends. And we can't afford that anymore. The reason we have Trump, it seems to me, is because, quite simply, too much money went to too few people in too few zip codes. And in a nation of 300 million plus, spread across a continent, that's a recipe for a populist revolt. The Democrats missed their trick to really win that and fashion a populist revolt of their own. I think a lot of people were hoping that Barack Obama was the change that they were demanding, which, although not put into policy or words, was clearly about the failure of policy to provide that American dream that people believe, and rightly so, we should have in this country. We're free, self-governing people, and we should govern it for ourselves, for the best aspects of ourselves. And the Democrats nominated, Hillary Clinton at one point, and Biden certainly tried to hammer some of that into legislation. He just didn't have the oomph anymore, just the vigor to make the presidential case. The presidency is a bully pulpit, and you got to be vigorous in it. And he was fading into the wallpaper. I said that on national television at the beginning of 2023, that the American people did not want to vote for a man who was 81 years old. And you could tell certainly that he was fading. That's my iPad. So that failure of the Democrats, with the exception, look, obviously who came close? Bernie Sanders still fills arenas because people hear the message that's very, very simple. And that is too much money went to too few people unjustly in too few zip codes. And that reduced the rest of the country to scrabbling for a smaller and smaller slice of the pie, and people feeling like they weren't living as good a life as their parents and that their children wouldn't live as good a life as well. And I will say this, having covered a lot of civil conflicts, civil wars around the world, in the Balkans, but elsewhere as well, that's when people will fight, when they get the sense that the governing regime won't give their kids a fair shot. And I think people rightly or wrongly felt that the technocracy, that the best educated, the front row kids, as the great writer and great walker Chris Arnade put it in 2016 in a memorable phrase. He said that the election in that year was between the front row kids, I know the answer, and everyone else. And there was truth in that, I suppose. And It's a vivid image, and I think people feel like, all right, well, and Trump came speaking a kind of fake language of the working class and throwing off the shackles of courtesy and niceties and all of that in order to stoke their instincts to tear the place down, which is what he wants. So I think there's that moral aspect in this, which is that the cruelty is the point, because now it gives people, yeah, well, the people who didn't deserve it, are going to get it. We're going to take away that welfare, of course, until it comes for their health care. And there is political opportunity in that. But the other thing I wanted to say is that the Republicans just told on themselves, right? They just told on themselves. This is a bill that will strip their own constituents of medical care, right? There's no question that most of this bill is going to damage the people who voted for Republicans. And in a way that's a shame on the Democrats. How did the Democrats lose the middle class, the lower middle class, the working class in substantial numbers? People under $100,000 a year, they went for Trump. That's a verdict on the Democratic Party. But the fact that the Republicans then turn around and do this to working people, who put their trust in this party and this man, is evidence of the hypocrisy that the Republicans' brand is now the working class, is now for working people. They aren't. They're for the same old rich people. And I think that's pretty clear here. And so that should be an advantage for the Democrats, right? That this is a political moment for the Democrats. Whether or not they'll be able to stand up and do anything about it, we'll have to see. So I think the other way that they told on themselves is they don't believe in this. This is going to explode the deficit. This is going to be ruinous if, in fact, all the models that show and all the smart people that say, look, this is going to cause more than $3 trillion increase in the national debt at a time when we can't afford it. So all of their gospel of parsimony and of being good stewards of the national fisc, no, they aren't. But actually, I think their hearts still are there. I mean, credit where credit is due to Rand Paul. Okay. Did I ever think I'd say those words? I don't know. But Rand Paul, he stuck by his guns. He said, I don't believe in this kind of federal spending. Neither do half the other Republican senators. And yet they grovel and they abase themselves and they toss out the principles that they've had for their whole lives on federal spending. They don't believe it's going to, generate all that much more economic activity. That's a fairy tale. And they're too sophisticated for that. They're doing it for Trump because they abase themselves. They bow down before Trump and they're terrified of him. Look what happened to Tom Tillis, the senator from North Carolina. And so this is something that I think, is going to be difficult for Republicans down the line. And it is of a piece, and this is the last thing I'll mention. So after January 6th, I remember I was on and I'm not telling tales out of school. I'm not going to be one of those backstairs gossip at ABC News guys. I have no interest in talking about this. This happened on the air. That awful day, January 6th. And everybody was shook up, right? By the end of it, it was 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning when the Congress finally did the constitutional process, accomplished the constitutional process of certifying the electoral votes after the Capitol was stormed by a Trump-inspired mob, which has now all been forgiven and forgotten. Not by me. Not by me. I'll never forget the sight of the Confederate flag marching through those halls and thought of the young men and the boys who died to put that flag of treason down. Well, that night, at the end of the night, we were talking about, well, all right, so Joe Biden is now formally the president of the United States as soon as he takes the oath on the 21st, actually from the moment he actually is certified. And there was a kind of a conversation around that table, George Stephanopoulos and other friends of mine, who were relieved, of course, naturally. It was over. And there's like, okay, Trump, what a strange figure in American history. and he's going to go back to Mar-a-Lago and make money and whatever. And I said, I was like, this is not the end of something. This is the beginning of something. Once a country gets this kind of thing in its bloodstream, it's very, very hard to get out. And that's what I said. You can see it in history. You can see it around the world right now. Once you do this to your principles, to your constitutional democracy, it's very hard to build it back. It's why the work that you're doing, that people are doing, is so important. It's why I'm taking joy right now, despite having been fired, because this is good work. This is good work to do. Because the democracy's at risk. And the story I have to tell that relates to the way the Republicans voted today, out of cowardice, is that when the time to vote on the conviction of Donald Trump, the second impeachment for what he did trying to steal our election and what he did inciting that mob to attack the Capitol, I was told by somebody pretty close to events that there were 10 votes, at least 10 more Republican senators who felt it was justified to vote to convict Donald Trump. The Constitution had a remedy for Trump: impeachment, conviction, banning for tossing him out of office, although he was, and banning him from ever holding federal office again. They didn't have the stones. They did not have the courage. There were Republicans who thought, well, somebody else, maybe Marco Rubio was one of them. Certainly Mitch McConnell was. Hey, I don't have to because somebody else will, right? They fell a few votes short. And they had the votes, according to an insider, they had the votes to convict him. And they were chicken bleep about it. What's the point? What's the point of getting elected by the people taking an oath? An oath, right? You're supposed to hold your soul when you take an oath. What's the point? What's the point today of sacrificing the principles that you've built your political career on? What's the point of doing wrong? And I think that those two factors, the practical factor that people are going to get hurt by this bill should it become law, as it looks likely to be, and the collapse of decency and morality in the Republican Party is an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to save the country, save our democracy, because people are not going to like this, and they'll trust people who are authentic in their love of the country, not some fake patriotism, but real patriotism. That's what I'm called this site. People who love the country, see it in peril, and want to save it. And that's you guys. I'm happy to see. What did my old man get? They only care about self-perceived power. It's so strange. If your word is no good, you have nothing. We all are taught that as kids. Now, we all have slipped up in our lives, but to live as a public figure in deceit of your own principles, that I don't know. So, look, let's jump into chat. Chat, I've talked long enough without hearing from you. So if you're here, jump in the chat, and I'll try and bring anybody who wants to in. It's a hard day. Makes you feel bad. That's the point. Don't feel good. We got work to do. Good work. We got trouble to get into. Good trouble. We'll see you in the chat.